hi. Yes, I think that this is really a problem that we all have to deal with. The holidays are coming up, so we have to socialize with our family members again. And I hope that I can help you with that a little bit. Because I can help you with that, I guess, because I know where you're coming from. All of my family members have either studied law or some sort of business analysis thing, or they have a decent job as a teacher. And I studied art, and that was kind of weird in my family. So my grandparents would always ask me if I have a job already, because of course, as an artist, you can never get a job. And if I was still safe, because I moved for art school. I moved to Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and it's dubbed as the most criminal city in the Netherlands. So I guess they were really scared that I would end up somewhere in the gutter without a job and sad and lonely, and possibly even murdered. Didn't happen, so that's pretty good, I guess. But so I know what you're coming from talking to people that are not from your own industry, because you would love to talk about your favorite subjects, right? So open source and Rubies and the existence of JavaScript. And if there's at least two things or two pieces of advice that I can give you beforehand, it is subscribe to Skill Crush Bootcamp. They have a 30-day email bootcamp, and they explain tech terms in a really beginner's kind of way. It's great. You learn what the difference between a website and a web application is, what programming languages are out there, what they do, what databases are, what servers are, and so you guys can learn how to explain this in a way that's pretty simple. If you really don't like more emails, which I can imagine, you can also go and coach at a Rails Girls event. This is a beginner's course for women who really want to learn something about programming, and they start with Ruby on Rails. And they'll ask you so many questions, and you'll have to explain them in a way that they understand it. When I just started programming, I did a lot of Rails Girls coaching, and I still do actually, and they still amaze me with questions about things that I take completely for granted, and I have to explain them in a normal people kind of language. So you can learn a lot there as well. So I have a confession to make. My name is Floor, and I'm dating a developer. And I have a Tumblr that you can follow. It's datingadeveloper.tumblr.com, where I collect some of the things that he says. And maybe you recognize yourself in it, and next time maybe think about explaining what you're saying there. So I'll run you through a few of them. Oh yes, that's me. Okay. Pretty neat. It's kind of deep, I guess. I mean, it's true, so not too weird, I guess. You can actually check it out later. He's the guy with the beard, so you can maybe pinch him and see if that's actually true. And I think I like this one the most. So in December, we're moving to Berlin, and we actually have a repository with all the things that we need, so what we need to buy still and what we need to collect to actually get this house. Yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, I work with GitHub a lot, so it's pretty good. It works. So it works because we were both working in technology, but I guess that not everyone has that luxury that they have a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend who works in the same field as you do. So then maybe it helps to get past this whole lingo that we're using. Like I said before, the Skill Crush emails are really pretty neat, explaining, for instance, what the difference between websites and web applications are. I think what it comes down to is a website is kind of static, doesn't need a lot of updates. Web application is basically updates all the time. You have to interact with it, and that's the main difference, explaining to a non-technical person what the difference is. And that mainly when you're talking about tech companies, they're making web applications. I explained it in this way to my mom, and she sort of understood it, so that's pretty good, I guess. What we like to say a lot is that we're bootstrapping our application, right? Or our company even. What it basically means is we're paying for stuff with our own money. And that's it. Like, don't try and make it harder than it is. I've seen pitches for companies. I work in the sort of startup sphere, so I get a lot of pitches, startup pitches, and then most of the pitch is about how they're bootstrapping their company and not really about what they're making or what problem they're trying to solve. And it's, yeah, so let's just move past that. It makes no sense. So yeah, that's great. You're using version control, so you have a virtual backup of whatever you're doing, and so if you're working together on something, nothing's going to break. Done, right? So, and then there's this whole discussion between front-end and back-end, and front-end people not really liking back-end people, and the other way around, or even dissing each other. It makes no sense. Let's get past that. We all like to program, we all like to make stuff, and that's about it, right? Open source, what does that mean? So you try to make something and then you figured out that you couldn't get any money out of it, so you threw it somewhere in the corner of the internet and for others to fix your bugs, right? Of course, I'm kidding, I love open source. You are a collaborator at heart and you like to work together with people and offer free software made transparently, right? That's a better explanation. So what I found, cybersecurity, by the way, every word where you put cyber in front of is awesome. I understand that. But it seems kind of weird to people that are not in our industry. What I found out a lot, and even though it's really not a conversation starter at all, but if you get people interested in privacy issues, security issues, then you can actually really help them with stuff. So we take this whole thing, like we know what NSA did wrong and what PRISM is, but there's really a lot of people who have no idea. And if they have a little idea, then there's two possible responses to it. One is, well, you know, I'm not doing anything wrong, I have nothing to hide, so I have nothing to worry about. That's on the one hand. And on the second hand, you have people being really like surprised that they could use all these free services for free all this time, and that their data would also always be protected, which is very naive, but a lot of people are very naive. So actually this is something that you could actually really help people with. So if you get this conversation started, as said, it's not a good conversation starter, but if you're in the conversation already, you could give them some tips and people will be very grateful. So it's a good way to talk about technology without boring people. It's good. Yes, so I'm quite interested in recruitment and in job titles, and there's these job titles that you see flying by all the time, and they're kind of weird and non-descriptive a lot of the times. So when your grandmother asks you what you're doing for a living, you might not want to use them. First of all, it's like senior developer. It's great because if you read a lot of the job descriptions that then follow after this job title, they ask you for 3 years of experience. So that's pretty senior. I think that in not any other field of industry we use senior developer for, or a senior for someone with 3 years of experience. I really hate this word, the rockstar developer thing, especially when people say, you know, rockstar developer can take on the work of 10 regular developers. That's bullshit. Nobody can. So please, let's not use this. Yeah, so Ninja. Especially also like Ninja front-ender or something like that. So that means that you don't have any front end because it's invisible. I really don't understand this. Guru doesn't work well with any job title because it's really gross. I imagine someone in like a whole white suit preaching to a lot of people, and hackers usually wear different shades of black, so that makes no sense. And wizard, I think, is the worst of the whole line, as it's pretty exclusive. I've never heard, I mean, I, as a woman, would never apply for a job that says wizard in it, because you have I actually Googled it, but it's like you have wizardress, or witch, or sorceress, and it all doesn't sound that great. Wizard is sort of kind of cute, right? Because they can also make some fun stuff, and things appear and sparkles and stuff, but a sorceress is not that friendly, I guess. Yeah, so I have a little confession. My job title, or unofficial job title, is developer evangelist, and that is also kind of weird, right? But I can sort of explain you what I'm doing. So about a year ago, I started learning programming, and I worked at this startup that worked with Ruby on Rails, so it was pretty clear what kind of programming language I would be learning. And it was very much enforced because we entered some state of eternal hack week, which meant that the developers were all working on features that they found fun and exciting, and they weren't fixing bugs anymore. And I was working as a community manager at that time. I had been working as a community manager for about 5 years, so I had to deal with all the users, right? So I would get emails that things were not working as they should, or didn't look nice, or were essentially broken. And I could go to the developers, but they were like, yeah, we can put it in the list somewhere, but first of all, it's hack week, so I work on the stuff that I like. And maybe if you write the bug report good enough, I might take a look at it, or if you buy me a beer, I might look at it. And that's about it. So I sort of started learning programming because I thought, well, then I can fix my own bugs, which is kind of ambitious and also didn't really work, but I mean, it's something. And nowadays, I really enjoy writing bug reports, call me crazy, and I really like translating stuff from developer speak to normal people language and the other way around. So I really love going through code documentation and rewriting it in a way that other people can also understand it and work with it. Yeah, at this startup, I was usually the one talking to the developers about what was wrong and what should be fixed. I really like this meme where they say what my mom thinks I do, what my friend thinks I do, and what I think I do. So I send out some emails to my mom and to my friends to ask them what they think I do for a living and what a developer does for a living. And they came up with some funky stuff, actually. Starting with my mom. So my mom is really interested in the whole startup sphere. She has a Twitter account and a Facebook account. She finds it incredibly interesting and fun to use. And there was this daily show in the Netherlands for a while. I mean, it's still around, right? It's De Wereld Draait Door. And there's this one guy who reports on startups and stuff in the US. And she followed that because I'm working at a startup, and she thought, well, she can figure out what I'm doing by just listening to this guy. And she would send me text messages or WhatsApp messages with stuff that he had said, and if that was the same in Europe or not. It usually isn't, but that's okay. So my mom has this sort of, I thought she would have a pretty accurate picture in her head of what I would be doing. And what responded was kind of like this. So she knows that I organize quite a lot of stuff. I organize Rails Girls events, I coach at Rails Girls events, I'm the co-organizer of the Ruby user group meetup in Vienna, also the WordPress user group meetup in Vienna, and I go to a lot of meetups, and I make sure that, for instance, my company sponsors stuff. For instance, my company works with Python, and we had a PyLadies, which is basically beginner's workshop for Python for girls, and I make sure that they sponsor some of the food or some of the swag. So for instance, for Vienna RB, sure, I make sure that there are free drinks available, right? Free beer always attracts a lot of people. So yeah, my mom has sort of this picture in her head that I offer free beer and then people use my product. And that's how it works. I wish it was that simple. Yeah, then I asked what my friends think I do, and I think they have a pretty okay picture of what I'm doing. But one friend came back with a whole story about what I might be doing. I'll publish it online later because it's too long, but it involves a lot of dragons and fire spitting and green skies and rain that like makes your skin burn and stuff like that. But he was right about one part where he said, well, you know, web developers, they spin this sort of web in which they catch these monstrous bugs. And then you have the web designers, and they make sure that this web is sort of camouflaged, so the monstrous bugs can't find it, but it looks very nice, so they lure them in. And you have the usability expert, no kidding, who makes sure that the web developer and the web designer's work is very agile, so they can do it on the fly, because you never know when a bug can pop up. So I thought it was pretty beautiful. I don't know how my job comes in there, but I thought that the story was pretty nice, so I will publish it later. And yeah, and then there's like the thing that I think that I'm doing. I think that I spread the programming love, and I make sure that people come together and make beautiful things. Anyway, back to the topic of the talk, which is how do you survive family gatherings and maybe a first date with a love interest who's not coming from technology. And first is maybe handling of presents. So what kind of presents do you give to your family members? Well, all you want to do is give them a copy of Half-Life 2 or 3. I have no idea what the iteration is at right now. Well, one idea is giving a makey-makey, because it is sort of technical, but also kind of easy and a lot of fun. So you can hook up daily life stuff to your makey-makey, like a banana or tomatoes or a sticker or whatever, and you can like recreate keystrokes with it, for instance. You can also like get a pencil, like a real good pencil, and draw some little Tetris things and play Tetris with it. And yeah, there's an infinite amount of examples available on the internet which you can use and play around with, and it's incredibly easy. I gave my dad a makey-makey, and he really loved it. And then I thought, well, if he likes a makey-makey, then maybe I can give him a Raspberry Pi. And a Raspberry Pi is not that easy, apparently. So he didn't like that much. Because with a makey-makey, there's really like a booklet also with examples that you could do, and with a Raspberry Pi, not so much. So that's just too hard. So that's taking it a step too far. Don't do that. And on Friday, I was talking to, I think, Mark from Boston. Yes, and he said, well, which I used to do is give all my family members a domain name. And I see two problems there. Like, I understand that it's a very smart thing to do. You know, in an hour before the Christmas party starts, you buy a shitload of domain names and you're done. So it's a really, sorry? It's an easy way to get a present really fast. But then first of all, a lot of people don't really want their first name, last name as a domain name. I know that I wouldn't want to. And then second, if they have a domain name, they probably want to have a website. And who are they going to call them? So if you think that's the easy way out, it's not. Ah, yes. And then in the magical event that there is another programmer at the dinner table in Christmas, the first thing to do would maybe be sort of afraid of it and figure out what language they come from, and but don't, because you're allies, so you can go through this thing together, even if this person is a PHP developer. So I can say this. No, I'm allowed to say this because I'm speaking at a WordPress conference this weekend, so I think I'm entitled to say this. Very important tip, turn off your devices for once. Don't look at your phone all the time. The pull request can really wait until after Christmas. There's not a lot of people using your application right now, unless you do something around Christmas with your application, else just wait with it a little bit. And that brings me to the most important part, because if you turn off your devices, you could do this. Test-driven interaction. You will fail maybe sometimes, and that's fine. You learn from it. So, thank you.